At 3 in the morning, when even their own confidence has nowhere left to perform, this person sits in the dark rehearsing a sentence they cannot say in daylight. And I need you to understand who this is. This is not someone who usually explains themselves. This is not someone who chases, begs, exposes, or loses control easily. This is someone people look to for answers. Someone who carries authority in their body. Someone who has trained themselves to stay composed even when something is tearing through them underneath the surface. But at 3 a.m., the mask slips. The emperor energy is loud here. Control, discipline, status, pride. A person who is used to being respected, used to being hard to reach, used to sitting above the noise and deciding what they will or will not reveal. And still, when the room goes quiet, they say your name. Not loudly, not dramatically, almost like they are testing whether the room can handle it. They say your name, and then they stop, because even hearing it come out of their own mouth makes the feeling too real. They have practiced the confession more than once. They have started it, changed it, swallowed it, started again. They keep trying to find a version that sounds controlled enough to protect their pride, but honest enough to finally release the pressure in their chest. And that is the part that would shock people who think they know them. Because this hard-to-impress leader, this person who looks unbothered, unreachable, maybe even cold sometimes, is not cold when it comes to you. They are careful. There is a difference. They are not silent because they feel nothing. They are silent because what they feel has the power to disturb the entire structure they built around themselves. Stay here because what they have been rehearsing in private is not casual. It is not a passing attraction. It is a confession that has been growing teeth in the dark. If that opening landed somewhere in your body, this reading is already confirming something you knew. Like this video, subscribe, and when you're ready, send the next card. And here it is, the Star in reverse. And I want you to feel how quiet this card is, because this is not the kind of energy that kicks the door open and announces itself. This is not someone running toward you with a speech prepared and flowers in their hand and every emotional sentence perfectly placed. No, this is someone sitting with the feeling after the performance is over. The Star reversed is that strange place where hope is still alive, but they do not fully trust it. They want to believe there is still something here. They want to believe that if they speak, if they finally let the truth come through without dressing it up in pride, it will not make them look foolish. But their mind keeps trying to make the confession sound reasonable, controlled, acceptable. Like they can say, I've been thinking about things, when what they really mean is, you have not left me alone inside myself. And that is where the pressure starts, because this person is not used to needing anyone. They are not used to feeling emotionally interrupted. They are not used to one name moving through their body and changing the temperature of the room. They can handle responsibility. They can handle pressure. They can handle people expecting them to lead, decide, provide, protect, stay strong. But this is different, because with you, the feeling does not stay where they put it. They try to intellectualize it. They try to reduce it. They try to call it timing, curiosity, unfinished business, attraction, ego, anything that sounds less dangerous than vulnerability. But every time they make the confession smaller, the truth gets louder. And at 3 a.m., that truth has no respect for their image. It sits beside them. It breathes with them. It asks them why they are still pretending that silence is strength when silence has become the very thing exposing them. They are not quiet because there is nothing to say. They are quiet because the first honest sentence would pull the thread on everything they have trained themselves to be. And the real shock is not that they have feelings. The real shock is what those feelings are forcing them to reconsider about power, pride, and the part of them that still wants to be seen without having to explain why. And then the Queen of Wands comes out, and now the story gets sharper. Because this card is not quiet in the same way the Star reversed was quiet. This is presence. This is warmth with a spine. This is the kind of energy that walks into a room without begging to be chosen, and somehow the room still adjusts. And I need you to understand why that matters to this person, because they are used to people responding to their power. They are used to being the one with the final word, the one who decides the pace, the one who can pull back and trust that someone else will lean forward. But you did not move like that. You did not collapse under their distance. You did not perform for their approval. You did not chase their silence around the room trying to make it speak. And that did something to them. Because this leader, this Emperor energy, has built so much of their identity around being composed, respected, untouchable. The person who does not need to explain why they feel what they feel, because needing to explain already feels too close to needing. And needing is the word they do not like. They can respect you from a distance. They can admire your fire from a distance. They can tell themselves you are confident, attractive, magnetic, memorable. They can make it sound simple. But the problem is, it is not simple. Because saying I miss you would put them on emotional ground they cannot control. Saying I was wrong would mean admitting. Their silence was not wisdom. It was fear wearing a crown. Saying I want you would mean they are no longer above the feeling, deciding whether it deserves access to them. They are inside it. And that is why the confession keeps stopping in their throat. They get to one honest phrase and suddenly it feels like surrender. Not defeat, not weakness, but surrender to the fact that your presence reached a part of them their discipline could not manage. In public, they can still look steady. But in private, the Queen of Wands is everywhere. Your energy, your confidence, your refusal to shrink. And the next layer is this. They are not only afraid of what they feel now, they are afraid of what they may have lost when they stayed silent too long. Because now the High Priestess is coming out in reverse. And this is where the regret starts to speak. Not loudly. Not in a way that would let them keep pretending it is only a passing thought. This is not regret that makes a scene. This is not the kind of regret that knocks everything over and announces, I made a mistake. No, this is quieter than that. This is the kind of regret that waits until their day is done, until nobody needs them, until there is no role to play, no decision to make, no image to maintain. And then it brings one moment back. Just one. A moment where they could have been softer. A moment where they could have answered differently. Looked at you longer. Reached out instead of pulling back. Told the truth instead of turning the truth into silence, because silence made them feel less exposed. And with the High Priestess reversed, there is something here about knowing and ignoring what they knew. They knew there was something different about you. They knew the silence was not neutral. They knew that when they acted like they were unaffected, something in you felt that distance. They may not have said it out loud, but part of them knew their control was costing the connection warmth. And still, they chose the mask. Not because you meant nothing, but because you meant enough to make them feel unsteady. That is the part they keep replaying, because when someone is used to being powerful, they can mistake emotional restraint for dignity. They can tell themselves, I handled that well, when really they only handled it in a way that protected their pride. And now the same silence they thought would keep them safe has become the thing making them feel powerless, because they cannot go back and soften the moment. They cannot unsay what they did not say. They cannot pretend forever that the space between you appeared by accident when they helped build it with every guarded response, every delayed message, every time they felt something rise in their chest and forced it back down. And that is why the confession is changing. It is no longer just, I feel something. It is not even only, I miss you. The confession they are rehearsing may not begin with love. It may begin with an apology. And now the Chariot is here. And this makes sense, because the Chariot is control in motion. It is someone holding the reins tightly, trying to steer two opposing forces without letting anyone see how hard their hands are gripping. One side of them wants to move toward you. The other side wants to stay protected. One side knows the apology has to be honest. The other side keeps trying to turn it into something polished enough that it will not cost them too much pride. And that is exactly why this confession has taken so long. Because in their head, there are versions of it. There is the version that sounds calm. The version that says just enough to test the water, but not enough to admit they have been drowning in it. There is the version that sounds mature, reasonable, almost detached, like, I could have handled things differently, when what they really mean is, I know I made you feel alone in something I was feeling too. Then there is the defensive version, the one that tries to explain everything before it apologizes for anything, the one that wants to say, I had a lot going on, or I didn't know how to approach it, or I was trying to do the right thing. Because part of them still wants to protect the image of being in control. But then there is the almost honest version. And that is the one that scares them. Because that version does not sound like leadership. It does not sound untouchable. It does not sound like someone standing above the situation, analyzing it from a distance. It sounds human. It sounds like I knew I was being guarded while I was doing it, and that is the sentence that makes their throat tighten. Because this apology is not just sorry. It is not a quick repair. It is not a clean little sentence they can drop into your life and expect everything to open immediately. It has weight because they would have to admit they withheld warmth. They acted unaffected. They made the connection feel smaller than it was, maybe because if they made it smaller, they could pretend it did not have so much power. But it did. It still does. And there is one sentence they keep avoiding, because if they say it, you will know exactly how far inside them you still are, because now the King of Pentacles is showing up in reverse. And this is important, because this person has been trying to stand on everything that usually makes them feel solid. Their status, their routine, their work, their responsibilities. Their image of being dependable, grounded, unshaken, maybe even untouchable in the material world. But reversed, this card says the foundation is not as steady as it looks. They may still be showing up, still handling business, still answering people, still looking like they have everything under control. But something underneath them is off balance, and they know it. Because the sentence they keep avoiding is not small. It is not, I like you. It is not, I think about you sometimes. No, it is closer to, you got closer than anyone was supposed to. And even that may be the safer version. The real one might be, I have not been the same since you. Or, I tried to act like I could replace this, and I could not. That is the part that would shake their pride. Because this is someone who is used to believing they can manage their attachments. They can focus on work. They can distract themselves. They can surround themselves with proof that they are still desirable, still respected, still in control of their own life. But none of that has touched the place you touched. Not loudly, not easily, not without cost. You became a reference point inside them, a standard, a before and after. And that is not something they know how to confess without sounding like they lost control of the story. Because attraction would be easier. Attraction can be explained. Attraction can be hidden under chemistry, timing, curiosity, a moment. But this is not just attraction. This is the uncomfortable realization that your presence changed what feels real to them, what feels honest, what feels like enough. And for someone who has built an identity around being hard to impress, that is disturbing because you impressed them without performing. You affected them without forcing. You stayed somewhere in them without asking permission. And now, even if they say nothing, something around them is starting to notice that they are not moving the same. And look at this, the King of Swords in reverse. So now it is not just their heart that is unsettled, it is their language. Their words are not landing the way they used to. Their pauses are longer. Their answers are sharper than they need to be. Their mind is still trying to stay above the feeling, but the body is giving them away in small places. And I do mean small. A name comes up and they react too quickly. A reminder passes through the room and suddenly their mood shifts. Someone asks a simple question and they answer like there was more underneath it than there was. Not because they want everyone to know, but because they are trying so hard to look unaffected that the effort itself becomes visible. That is King of Swords reversed energy. The person who usually knows exactly what to say suddenly does not trust their own mouth. The person who usually keeps conversations clean, logical, controlled, starts avoiding certain topics because one wrong sentence might expose too much. And around them, people may not know the whole story. They may not know your name holds weight. They may not know why this person gets quiet at certain times, why they seem distracted, why they become colder in public, almost as if they are trying to compensate for how warm the feeling gets when nobody is watching. But they can sense something. They can sense the disruption because this hard to impress leader is still functioning, still respected, still carrying authority, still capable of looking like nothing can touch them. But emotional neutrality, that part is slipping. And that is what makes this different. This is not weakness. This is not someone falling apart for attention. This is the rare sight of a person who has trained themselves to live through the mind being moved by something the mind cannot manage. And because they cannot fully process it, they may come off colder, more distant, more controlled than before, not because the feeling disappeared, because it got too close. And now the question becomes, why you? Why did your presence become the thing that got past the walls, past the logic, past the performance? Because the next card is going to show exactly why you were the one who broke through. And now we have the Two of Swords in reverse. And this tells me exactly why you were different. Because you did not try to force the blindfold off. You did not stand in front of this person demanding that they feel faster, speak sooner, choose louder, explain themselves before they were ready. You did not need to knock the crown off their head to prove there was a human being underneath it. You saw it anyway, and that is what unsettled them. Because they are used to people reacting to the surface, the title, the posture, the distance, the confidence, the way they can go quiet and make other people start questioning themselves. They are used to being misunderstood in ways that still keep them powerful. But you did not misunderstand them like that. You saw the control, but you also saw the fear inside it. You saw the silence, but you did not immediately call it emptiness. You saw the guardedness, but something in you knew there was more happening behind the wall. And that is rare for them. With the Two of Swords reversed, the avoidance is breaking open. The decision they kept delaying is no longer sitting politely in the background. It is right there, pressing against their chest, because your presence exposed the part of them that has been stuck between wanting to protect themselves and wanting to be known. You did not impress them by performing. You did not impress them by chasing. You did not impress them by trying to overpower their restraint with more intensity. You simply stayed in your own energy long enough for them to realize they could not control the connection by controlling access to themselves. And I need you to hear that. This person may have tested you. They may have underestimated you. They may have assumed that if they went quiet, you would panic. If they pulled back, you would overextend. If they stayed unreadable, you would start performing for clarity. But you did not become smaller just to be chosen. And that forced a different kind of respect, the kind they cannot fake, the kind that starts in the mind, then moves into the body, then becomes desire before they can stop it. And now respect has become something warmer, something more dangerous, because desire is no longer something they can manage from a distance. And now the King of Cups is here. And this is the card that tells me the feeling has matured past denial. Because the King of Cups does not panic in the middle of emotion. He sits with it. He holds it. He knows the wave is there, even if his face stays calm. And that is exactly what makes this moment so intense, because this person is no longer confused about whether they feel something. They know. The question is what they are going to do with it. And I feel them getting closer to action here. Not recklessly, not impulsively, not in a way that throws everything at your feet and demands that you respond. No, this is quieter. This is them hovering over a message and reading the same sentence 5 times. Typing something, deleting it, typing it again with less emotion, then deleting that too because it sounds too cold. Thinking about calling, then imagining your voice on the other end and realizing they do not know if they can stay composed once they hear it. And that is where the risk comes in. Because before, silence felt like protection. Now, silence feels like time running out. They know the delay has changed something. They know you may not be standing in the exact same place emotionally that you were before. They know there is a chance that when they finally speak, you will listen differently. Not cruelly, not coldly, but differently. And that scares them more than they want to admit. Because this is no longer just about wanting you. It is about whether they can become honest before the connection changes shape completely. Before your softness becomes distance. Before your openness becomes caution. Before the part of you that once waited for clarity decides it no longer needs to wait for anything. And that is why the confession is rising now. Not because they suddenly lost control. Because they are starting to understand that control may be the very thing that made them late. The King of Cups says the feeling is real, but it is contained, held back, measured, almost too carefully. But the final message they are rehearsing is not really about control anymore. It is about surrender. And now the Eight of Wands is here. So yes, the energy is moving. But I want you to notice something about this card, because this is not just speed for the sake of speed. This is not a promise that someone gets to rush in after taking their time and expect you to drop everything because they finally found the courage to speak. No. This is momentum after resistance. This is what happens when the truth has been held back for so long that once it starts moving, it cannot be neatly controlled anymore. The message, the call, the confession, the reach toward you, it may come faster than their pride planned. But the deeper point is not the timing. It is what has broken open inside them. Because this confession is not just about romance. It is not just about missing you, wanting you, thinking about you when the room goes quiet. This is about the collapse of an identity they built around never needing, never explaining, never reaching first, never being the one whose voice changes because another person got too close. And that is why you do not need to chase this. You do not need to lower your worth to make their honesty easier. You do not need to soften the silence for them, translate their fear for them, or create a safe little doorway where they can step in without feeling the weight of what they avoided. They have to choose truth without being rescued from the discomfort of it. That is the whole point. Because if this leader comes forward, it cannot be only because they are afraid to lose access to you. It has to be because they are finally willing to meet you without the performance, without the crown doing all the talking, without control, standing in the doorway pretending to be strength. And maybe they are still gathering courage. Maybe the message is still being typed and erased. Maybe at 3 a.m, they still sit there with your name in their mouth, trying to decide whether surrender will destroy them or finally set something honest free. But hear me. The truth has already broken through inside them. And if this reading found you, tell me in the comments what part landed the hardest. Like the video, subscribe if you want more readings like this, and remember, the confession may be coming, but your worth was never waiting on it.